The vastness of space stretched endlessly, a silent ocean of stars that seemed both eternal and indifferent. Amid this darkness, the hum of countless engines cut through the void, a fleet moving with precision, purpose, and confidence. This was the Galactic Empire, the pride of thousands of star systems, a civilization that had conquered planets, bent resources to its will, and shaped galaxies in its image. Their leaders had ruled for centuries, secure in the knowledge that no opponent could hope to challenge them. Yet, on the edge of the Empire's outer systems, something unusual appeared on the sensors, small blips moving together in a loose formation, heading directly toward Imperial space. They were Terran ships belonging to humanity, a species the Empire had always considered primitive, barely advanced enough to explore their own solar system. The name Terran carried little weight in Imperial councils. They were curious, yes, perhaps even amusing, but hardly a threat. Admiral Vaylor of the Imperial Navy leaned over his observation console, watching the readouts carefully. His eyes narrowed as the Terran fleet grew larger on the monitors. "Strange," he muttered. "They should not be capable of coordinated interstellar travel of this scale." His aide, Lieutenant Ralvik, frowned. "Sir, should we prepare defensive measures?" Vaylor waved his hand dismissively. "Prepare for this curiosity? No, let them come. We will see how fragile their technology truly is." Back on Earth, the Terran fleet sailed through the darkness with quiet purpose. Captain Ilara Voss stood on the bridge of the flagship Resolute, gazing at the stars. The fleet was small by Imperial standards, just a few dozen ships, each built with ingenuity rather than sheer firepower. Yet every crew member knew that their mission was daring. Humanity had never before ventured so far into space, but they were determined to prove that their spirit was as boundless as the stars themselves. "Captain," reported Lieutenant Joran, "the communications officer, we are approaching the outer perimeter of Imperial space. Sensors detect no hostile activity yet, but something is different." Ilara nodded, her hands resting lightly on the rail. "Different how?" "Confidence," Joran said. "Whatever is out there, it's not afraid of us." "It's arrogant," Ilara smiled faintly. "Then we must match it, Lieutenant. Remember, humans do not fear the unknown. We explore it. We adapt to it. That is what sets us apart." The Terran ships glimmered under the light of distant stars, each a testament to human ingenuity. They were smaller, yes, and their weapons less sophisticated than Imperial energy cannons, but they were clever. Shields were adaptive. Engines could maneuver in ways larger ships could not, and every ship was designed to work as part of a greater whole. As the fleet advanced, the first Imperial scouts appeared, sleek and silver, gliding through space with deadly precision. They were vastly superior in technology and numbers, each one a miniature fortress capable of obliterating the human ships with a single strike. Yet they moved cautiously, aware that the Terrans were unusual, unpredictable, and perhaps more dangerous than their size suggested. On the bridge of the Celestial Spear, the Empire's command ship Admiral Vaylor observed the scouts' readings. "Curious," he said. "Their ships are not hiding, not running. They approach with pride, foolish pride." Lieutenant Ralvik studied the holographic display. "Sir, if they are so primitive, why do they not panic? Why do they not flee?" Vaylor's eyes gleamed. "Because they do not know fear. Or perhaps they are too stubborn to care. Either way, this will be enlightening." A hush fell over the Imperial fleet as the Terrans drew closer. The human ships seemed small, almost fragile, yet they moved with a coordinated elegance that defied the Empire's expectations. The humans' confidence was palpable even through the sensors. There was something in the way they held formation, in the subtle adjustments of their engines that spoke of ingenuity, courage, and a refusal to bow to intimidation. Captain Voss watched the readings carefully. "They know we are here," she said calmly, "but they do not yet know who we are. That is our advantage." Lieutenant Joran frowned. "Do you think they will attack?" Ilara shook her head. "I do not know, but humans do not strike without reason. We will observe. We will respond. And when the time comes, we will act, not with arrogance, but with strategy." The silence of space was broken suddenly by a voice over the Imperial channels, loud, commanding, and full of certainty. "Terrans," it called, its tone sharp and uncompromising. "You have entered Imperial space. Identify yourselves or prepare to be destroyed." Captain Voss took a deep breath. She had expected this. Open a channel, she instructed. Let us speak, not fight yet. The communication link crackled and hummed. Voss's voice was calm, confident. I am Captain Ilara Voss of the Terran fleet. We mean no harm, yet we will not retreat. There was silence on the other end, then a scoff. Your small fleet cannot hope to survive. We are the Galactic Empire. We command the stars themselves. Turn back or face annihilation. Ilara smiled faintly. We do not intend to face annihilation. We intend to show you that strength is more than numbers and weapons. Humanity adapts, learns, and perseveres. That is how we survive and thrive. The Imperial fleet paused. Vaylor's fingers drummed on the console. Curious, he muttered. They speak with such certainty. Do they even understand what they are facing? They are humans, Ralvik replied quietly. They never do. The first contact was tense but uneventful. Both fleets moved closer, studying one another, measuring capabilities, calculating risks. The humans observed Imperial patterns, noting the firing ranges, the blind spots in formation, and the timing of patrol drones. Every crew member was alert, every sensor carefully monitored, yet the mood on the Terran ships remained calm. Captain Voss leaned over the tactical display, tracing the Imperial fleet's movement with her finger. See how they rely on sheer firepower and intimidation, she said. They underestimate the value of adaptation and cooperation. That is our advantage, Lieutenant Joran nodded. We can predict their actions, yes, but their weapons. Even a single shot could destroy a ship. Ilara's eyes sparkled with determination. Then we must be clever, Lieutenant. Let them underestimate us. Let them believe their superiority is unchallenged. That is when we act. In the distance, the stars seemed to flicker as both fleets prepared for what might come next. For the Empire, it was an opportunity to demonstrate unquestionable dominance. For humanity, it was an opportunity to prove that courage, intelligence, and unity could overcome the impossible. And in that silence between the stars, a quiet truth hung in the void. The Galactic Empire had never faced a species like humanity before, and the humans had never faced an enemy like the Empire. Both sides would soon discover that the outcome of this encounter was far from certain. The Terran fleet continued its steady advance, engines glowing faintly in the darkness. Captain Voss moved through the bridge, nodding to crew members, offering words of encouragement. There was no fear here, no hesitation, only focus, determination, and a sense of purpose. In the Empire's flagship, Admiral Vaylor leaned back in his command chair, watching the small, confident ships approach. Prepare to witness fragility, he said with a smile. And we will see just how amusing their courage is. But as he spoke, a subtle unease lingered unspoken. There was something about the Terran fleet's resolve that defied expectation, something in their coordinated movements, their calm under observation, that hinted at a capability the Empire had not anticipated. The first act of this encounter was over, but the real challenge, the true test of ingenuity, courage and resilience was only beginning. And somewhere deep within the Terran fleet, a quiet smile spread across Captain Voss's face. She knew the Empire expected fear, and that was exactly what humanity would turn into opportunity. Above all, in the vast indifferent darkness of space, a simple truth shone brighter than the stars themselves. Humans were clever, persistent, and utterly unpredictable, and that made all the difference. The tension in space was almost tangible. The Terran fleet glided closer to the heart of Imperial territory, their sensors scanning every movement of the Empire's warships. Captain Ilara Voss stood on the bridge of the Resolute, her hands resting lightly on the rail as her eyes followed the shimmering outlines of Imperial ships on the display. They were massive, sleek, and threatening, but the humans were calm, organized, and confident. Lieutenant Joran broke the silence. Captain, they are shifting formation. It looks like they are preparing an intercept. Ilara nodded. Expected. Let's see how predictable they really are. She turned to her communications officer. Open a secure channel to all ships. Keep them informed, but no one fires unless given an order. The Terran ships adjusted their positions, moving with quiet precision. Every maneuver, every subtle shift in angle and speed was designed to observe the Empire's reaction. The humans were not just exploring space. They were testing their wits against an opponent who considered them weak. On the bridge of the Celestial Spear, Admiral Vaylor observed the Terran movements with growing interest. They are bold, he muttered. Too bold, Lieutenant Ralvik frowned. Sir, should we issue a warning shot? Perhaps demonstrate our power? Vaylor shook his head. No, let them come closer. It is amusing to watch the untested strain their courage, and if they make a mistake, so much the better. The first contact occurred almost imperceptibly. An Imperial scout moving ahead of the main fleet adjusted its course and came dangerously close to the Terran formation. Its energy sensors swept across the human ships, scanning for weaknesses. The Terran ships did not flinch. Instead, one smaller vessel, the Intrepid, mirrored the scout's movements, subtly matching its speed and trajectory, as if taunting the much larger ship. Interesting, Joran murmured. They are using our scans against us. Alara's eyes gleamed with quiet satisfaction. They do not realize it yet. Humans have a way of turning assumptions into advantages. Watch carefully, Lieutenant. Observation is our first weapon. The Empire's scouts were puzzled. Their instruments had never encountered such unpredictable behavior. Normally, a species this primitive would either scatter or surrender. Yet the Terrans held formation, moving deliberately, adapting to the scouts' maneuvers with uncanny timing. Suddenly, a warning sounded on the Resolute. A group of Imperial drones had launched, small and fast, equipped with advanced energy disruptors. Their purpose was simple: disable or destroy the Terran ships before the main fleet arrived. Lieutenant Joran, calculate intercept trajectories, Alara ordered. We will not retreat. Prepare evasive maneuvers. Use the asteroid belts nearby as cover if necessary. The Terran ships split into smaller groups, weaving through space with remarkable agility. The drones followed, but the humans anticipated every move, using clever adjustments to shield modulation and engine bursts. The Terrans avoided the disruptors with a combination of skill and creativity. One of the Terran pilots, Ensign Kira Solis, let out a laugh as her ship slipped past a drone, its energy pulse narrowly missing her hull. They think they can catch us, she said. They don't know what they're up against. Back on the Celestial Spear, Admiral Vaylor's expression shifted slightly. They are clever, he admitted almost grudgingly. But cleverness cannot replace firepower. Prepare the main fleet. The Imperial fleet advanced in a tight formation, their massive warships glowing with controlled energy fields. Each ship bristled with weapons capable of obliterating Terran ships in seconds. Yet the humans did not panic. They observed, they adapted, and they waited for the moment when their ingenuity could tip the balance. Captain, Joran reported, the Empire is closing fast. They have deployed full combat formation. Our sensors indicate their energy cannons are charged. If they fire, it could devastate us, Alara remained calm. Then we make our move before they can fully strike. Prepare the fleet for coordinated evasive patterns. Emphasize adaptability over brute strength. Remember, humans survive by thinking, not by dominating. The first shots rang out, not from the Empire but from the humans. Using a combination of modified ion pulses and precise targeting, the Terran ships disabled several of the incoming drones. Each move was calculated to cause maximum confusion, forcing the Empire to waste energy and effort. The Imperial officers were baffled. How can such small ships cause so much disruption? One asked in disbelief. This is not possible. Vaylor's fingers drummed on the command console. It isn't fascinating. They are turning their weaknesses into strengths. Watch carefully. Observe how humans fight, not with sheer force but with wit. The battle unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance. Imperial ships fired, but the Terran fleet maneuvered around the blasts, using micro-adjustments and rapid calculations to avoid destruction. They were small, but their movements were precise, coordinated, and unpredictable. In one instance, the Resolute split from the main fleet, drawing a group of Imperial warships into a narrow cluster of asteroid fragments. Using the field as cover, the humans slipped through the gaps, leaving the massive ships exposed and vulnerable to friendly fire from their own miscalculated movements. See? Alara said quietly. Even the largest opponent can be outsmarted if you understand the terrain and anticipate behavior. Joran nodded, impressed. They didn't expect that. They underestimated us. The Empire's frustration grew with every maneuver the Terrans executed. Their weapons were powerful, but the humans' agility, ingenuity, and coordination made them increasingly difficult targets. For the first time, Imperial officers began to question the simplicity of their assumptions. Perhaps, they thought, these humans were not as weak as rumored. The Terrans' confidence was not arrogance. It was a quiet understanding of their own strengths. Their ships were smaller, but they were faster, more flexible, and more capable of improvisation. Humans did not rely solely on technology. They relied on creativity, teamwork, and a willingness to take calculated risks. Captain Voss issued a command. All ships maintain formation but emphasize unpredictability. Use every tool at your disposal. Keep them guessing. Remember, we do not need to win by destruction. We need to survive and demonstrate our capability. As the battle continued, the first signs of the Terran strategy became clear. They were not attempting to destroy the Empire. They were learning, observing, and adapting. Every engagement taught them about Imperial tactics, every dodge revealed vulnerabilities, and every pulse of energy fired against them became a lesson in improvisation. The Imperial officers grew increasingly uneasy. These humans, they are not just surviving. They are learning faster than we anticipated, one muttered. Vaylor remained silent for a moment, studying the displays.
Indeed, they are
remarkable. But cleverness can only delay the inevitable. They cannot outlast the Empire forever. Meanwhile, in the Terran fleet, a sense of quiet determination prevailed. Crew members worked seamlessly, adjusting shields, rerouting power, and exchanging information in rapid bursts. Even when confronted with overwhelming odds, they did not panic. They relied on ingenuity, communication, and coordination. Human traits honed over centuries of survival on an unpredictable planet. Ensign Solis guided her ship through a narrow gap between two massive warships, narrowly avoiding a beam of energy that could have obliterated her in an instant. "This is insane," she said, laughing breathlessly. "But we're making it work." Captain Voss smiled at the report. "Good, keep moving. Keep learning. Every encounter makes us stronger." As the first skirmishes concluded, both sides paused. The Terrans had survived the initial assault without significant damage, while the Empire had expended energy and resources without achieving the destruction they expected. The contrast was stark. The humans had proven that ingenuity, courage, and adaptability could stand against overwhelming power, even if only temporarily. The first confrontation ended not with a decisive victory, but with a subtle shift in perspective. For the Empire, it was a lesson in caution. For humanity, it was a confirmation of their potential. In the void of space, a silent understanding grew. Humans were clever, persistent, and capable of turning adversity into opportunity. Captain Voss looked over her fleet, pride evident in her eyes. "This is only the beginning," she said softly. "The Empire may have power, but we have something they cannot predict: creativity, courage, and unity. That is how humans survive." And far across the battlefield, among the towering warships of the Galactic Empire, Admiral Vaylor leaned back in his command chair, his expression thoughtful. "They are surprising," he admitted quietly. "Perhaps we have underestimated the human spirit." But even as he spoke, neither side fully understood what lay ahead. The Terrans had survived the first engagement, but the real challenge, the full test of their ingenuity, courage, and adaptability, was only beginning. And in the quiet moments between skirmishes, both fleets prepared for the next act in this unfolding drama, knowing that space would soon reveal the full measure of human capability. In the darkness of the stars, the Terran fleet moved with confidence, small but formidable, calm but daring. They had survived the first confrontation, and in doing so, had demonstrated a truth that would echo across the void. Intelligence, creativity, and unity could rival even the mightiest force in the galaxy. And as they continued their approach, the space between the Terran fleet and the heart of the Galactic Empire's territory grew tense as both sides prepared for the next encounter. The initial skirmish had ended without decisive victory, but it had shown something unexpected. The Terrans were clever, coordinated, and daring. For the first time, Imperial officers whispered questions they had never considered. Could humans truly stand against the Empire's might? Admiral Vaylor, aboard the flagship Celestial Spear, tapped his fingers on the console, his eyes narrowing. "They survived the scouts in the first wave," he muttered. "Interesting. But survival alone does not equate to victory. Prepare the main fleet. We will show them the true scale of Imperial power." Across the Terran fleet, Captain Alara Voss studied the approaching Imperial forces. The main battle fleet was massive, rows upon rows of ships bristling with weapons, energy shields pulsing like living armor. The humans were outnumbered, outgunned, and yet not intimidated. They had survived before, and they would survive again. Lieutenant Joran, she said calmly, they are moving into full assault formation. We must anticipate every move. Prepare all ships for coordinated evasive maneuvers and energy dispersal. Emphasize adaptability over force. That is our strength. Joran nodded, his fingers flying over the controls. All ships report. Shields at full strength. Engines calibrated for rapid bursts. Communication lines open for instant coordination. The first shots of the main engagement fired not long after. Imperial warships released long beams of energy, cutting across the darkness toward the Terran fleet. The human ships moved as one, dodging and weaving with a combination of precision and instinct. They avoided destruction not by overpowering the Empire, but by outthinking it. Ensign Kira Solis piloted her ship through a narrow path between two massive cruisers, narrowly avoiding a pulse of energy. They really expect us to fail, she muttered under her breath. But we won't. The humans did not attack in the traditional sense. Instead, they focused on observation and adaptation. Every beam fired at them became data. Every pattern and delay in the Imperial assault taught them something new. They were learning faster than the Empire anticipated. Captain, Joran reported, they are adjusting their firing patterns based on our movements. They are beginning to predict our maneuvers. Ilara's expression remained calm. Then we adjust again. Humans are unpredictable. We do not move in straight lines. We do not rely on repetition. Every ship must act in coordination but remain flexible. That is the key. The Imperial officers were growing frustrated. Their energy beams struck near misses more often than direct hits. For every Terran ship they disabled, another slipped past or countered in ways that defied expectation. Sir, Lieutenant Ralvik said nervously, they are adapting. Each move we make seems anticipated. How is this possible? Vaylor's eyes gleamed with a mixture of irritation and fascination. Humans, he said quietly, almost to himself. They are clever, but cleverness cannot overcome our numbers. They will break. They always do. But the Terrans did not break. They moved as if guided by intuition, every ship responding to subtle shifts in the battle. When one vessel dodged a beam, another covered its path. When a group encountered danger, the fleet shifted to compensate, minimizing risk while maintaining formation. Captain Voss watched the Imperial fleet closely. Notice how they rely on sheer power, she said. They have strength, yes, but they lack creativity. That is our advantage. We will turn their expectations against them. The first human countermeasures were subtle but effective. Using modified ion pulses, small energy bursts, and careful navigation, the Terrans disrupted the targeting systems of several Imperial warships. The Empire's response was swift, but every adjustment they made revealed another pattern, a weakness that the humans could exploit. Ensign Solis guided her ship past a massive cruiser and used a brief ion pulse to interfere with the ship's targeting array. Direct hit, she reported excitedly. The big one's systems are scrambled. Captain Voss allowed herself a small smile. Good, keep it up. Precision over power. That is how humans survive. The Empire, for all its technological superiority, was slow to adapt. Their large ships were powerful but cumbersome, and their reliance on brute force left gaps that the humans exploited. Small Terran ships darted between cruisers, dodging energy pulses and using the enemy's momentum against them. It was a battle of intelligence versus size, strategy versus overwhelming force. Admiral Vaylor's frustration grew. They are learning too quickly, he admitted. We underestimated them, but we will not fail. Prepare the secondary assault fleet. They will not survive this. On the Terran side, communication channels buzzed with activity. Captain Voss coordinated her fleet with calm efficiency. All ships focus on adaptation. We do not need to destroy them. Only survive and demonstrate our capability. Observe, learn, and exploit patterns. The humans' adaptability proved its worth almost immediately. When the secondary assault fleet arrived, expecting easy victories, they found themselves caught off guard by unexpected maneuvers, decoys, and coordinated evasive actions. Terran ships slipped past attacks, disrupted targeting systems, and used the environment, asteroid fields, radiation pockets, and magnetic anomalies to their advantage. Lieutenant Joran leaned over the tactical display. Captain, they didn't expect this. They are scrambling their formation. We can continue to exploit their overconfidence, Ilara nodded. Exactly. Humans never rely solely on strength. We rely on understanding, adaptation, and cooperation. That is how we survive against greater power. For every Imperial officer who expected quick victory, the unfolding reality was disorienting. Small ships, fragile, lightly armed by comparison, were causing chaos among the ranks of the Empire. Their movements were unpredictable, their coordination flawless, and their ingenuity boundless. Ensign Solus maneuvered her ship through a cluster of smaller Imperial vessels, using precise bursts of energy to disable targeting systems without destroying the ships entirely. "They won't know what hit them," she said with a grin. Captain Voss allowed herself a small smile as she observed the battle. They may have numbers, they may have firepower, but humans have something they cannot predict: creativity and the will to survive. That is what makes us formidable. The Empire's frustration boiled over. Massive cruisers fired volleys of energy indiscriminately, attempting to overpower the humans. Yet the Terran ships dodged, adapted, and countered, demonstrating resilience that no Imperial officer had expected. Admiral Vaylor's expression darkened. "They are resilient. Too resilient. I underestimated them. But no matter. They cannot sustain this indefinitely. Prepare the final strike." But even as the Empire prepared its ultimate assault, the Terrans had already planned a countermeasure. Captain Voss observed the positioning of Imperial ships and calculated the optimal paths for her fleet. "Lieutenant Joran," she said, "we will use their confidence against them. Execute the maneuvers we rehearsed. It will confuse them and give us the advantage." The Terran ships moved with precision, executing complex maneuvers that the Imperial fleet could not anticipate. They used decoys, holographic projections, and rapid bursts of energy to disrupt targeting systems, forcing the Empire to expend energy on futile attacks. Ensign Solus guided her ship past a massive warship, using a calculated ion pulse to interfere with its navigation systems. "They won't know what hit them," she reported. The human strategy was simple but effective: survive, observe, adapt, and exploit. They did not need to destroy the Empire. They needed to demonstrate that intelligence, creativity, and coordination could challenge even the mightiest force. Admiral Vaylor watched in disbelief as his fleet struggled to maintain formation. "Impossible," he muttered. "They are clever. Far too clever for a species this small." Captain Voss allowed herself a quiet smile. "Cleverness and courage, Admiral. That is what makes humans strong. We do not fear the impossible. We learn from it, and we survive." The first major clash of the main fleets ended not with a decisive victory, but with a demonstration of skill, intelligence, and resilience. The Terrans had survived against overwhelming odds, and in doing so, they had proven that strength was more than size or firepower. In the silent void of space, the human fleet moved together. Small but formidable, clever and coordinated, they had survived the Empire's first full strike, and in doing so, had demonstrated a truth that would echo across the stars. Ingenuity, courage, and unity could rival even the most powerful adversary. Captain Voss looked at her crew, pride shining in her eyes. "This is only the beginning," she said softly. "We have shown them what humans are capable of. The Empire may have power, but we have strategy, courage, and creativity. That is how humans survive and thrive." And far across the battlefield aboard the Celestial Spear, Admiral Vaylor considered the Terrans anew. "They are remarkable," he admitted quietly. "Perhaps we have underestimated them. But the next phase will test them and us far more deeply." The humans had survived the first major confrontation, and the Empire had learned a lesson it had never expected. Size and power could be challenged by intelligence, adaptability, and the unyielding spirit of humanity. And in the vast darkness of space, both fleets prepared for what was coming next, knowing that the real test, the full measure of human capability, was only beginning. The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly, silent except for the hum of engines and the faint pulse of distant stars. After surviving the Empire's first full strike, the Terran fleet held its formation, observing every movement of the massive Imperial forces. Captain Alara Voss stood on the bridge of the Resolute, calm yet alert, her eyes scanning the holographic display of enemy positions. "Admiral Vaylor thinks he has us cornered," she said softly to Lieutenant Joran. "But he underestimates our ability to adapt." Joran nodded. "Sir, their fleet is preparing another assault. They are attempting to anticipate our movements even more carefully. Then we must act before they can strike, Ilara replied. Humans survive by turning the impossible into opportunity. Begin executing the plan we rehearsed. The Terran fleet moved as one, small yet coordinated. Each ship was designed for flexibility, speed, and clever tactics rather than brute force. Their engines flared briefly as they adjusted formation, slipping past the edges of the Imperial fleet. On the Imperial side, the massive warships bristled with energy, their captains certain that the humans would soon be overwhelmed. Sir, Ralvik said nervously, the Terrans are moving unpredictably. Their formation is unusual. Are they retreating? Vaylor shook his head. No, they are setting a trap. Observe carefully. Do not underestimate them. The first stage of humanity's counterplay became clear as the Terran fleet split into smaller groups, sending decoy signals and holographic projections in multiple directions. The Imperial sensors were flooded with false images, making it impossible to track the true positions of the Terran ships. Imperial warships fired repeatedly, but their beams struck only shadows and illusions, wasting energy and ammunition. Captain Voss smiled faintly. They think power alone will dominate us. Let them waste it. Every beam they fire against a shadow is a lesson for them, and an opportunity for us. Ensign Kira Solis piloted her ship through a dense cluster of asteroids, narrowly avoiding a beam that had been intended for the Intrepid. They never expected this, she said. They don't understand our strategy. Joran monitored the fleet's communications. Captain, our decoys are drawing their attention. Their ships are misaligning. It's working. Excellent, Ilara said. Now we guide them into the next stage. The humans used the asteroid field not just for cover, but as a tool for deception. Carefully calculated maneuvers allowed small bursts of energy to interfere with Imperial targeting systems. High impulses, subtle magnetic disruptions, and carefully timed engine flares created a dynamic environment the massive warship struggled to navigate. Every miscalculation on the Empire's side gave the Terrans a momentary advantage, a chance to outthink, outmaneuver, and survive. The Imperial fleet's frustration grew. Massive cruisers fired indiscriminately, yet the Terran ships remained largely unscathed. Even the largest warships were slowed by the unpredictable human maneuvers, unable to coordinate attacks effectively. Sir, Ralvik said, they are using the environment against us. Even the asteroid field is part of their strategy. Vaylor's brow furrowed. They are ingenious, but cleverness can only delay the inevitable. We have power on our side. Strength will prevail. Yet the Terrans continued to prove that strength alone was not enough. Captain Voss issued precise commands. All ships maintain formation but emphasize unpredictability. Use every tool, every opportunity. The Empire expects fear. We give them ingenuity instead. The humans executed their plan flawlessly. Smaller Terran vessels led groups of Imperial ships into dangerous pockets of space, where gravitational anomalies and magnetic fields interfered with sensors and weapons. Holographic decoys projected false images of ships, while actual Terran vessels slipped through gaps in the enemy formation, striking at weak points without causing destruction, only disruption. Lieutenant Joran noted the results with quiet satisfaction. Captain, their fleet is disorganized. They are reacting, not planning. We have forced them onto our terms. Ilara nodded. Exactly. Humans do not rely on fear or brute force. We rely on observation, adaptability, and cooperation. That is our advantage. Ensign Solis guided her ship between two massive Imperial cruisers, releasing a pulse that temporarily disabled their targeting systems. They won't know what hit them, she said, laughing softly. The Imperial officers were growing increasingly uneasy. They are small, one whispered, but they are coordinated and clever. I have never seen this before. Vaylor remained calm, though he could not hide the flicker of concern in his eyes. Remarkable, he admitted quietly. They are turning every challenge into opportunity, but we will test them further. The Empire's fleet attempted to reorganize, bringing massive ships together in a tighter formation to regain control, but the Terrans were already anticipating the move. Captain Voss calculated paths that led the Imperial ships into narrow channels and gravity wells, where even the largest vessels struggled to maneuver. Every obstacle was used strategically, every movement intentional. Joran reported, Captain, they are falling into our trap. Their formation is breaking. They are vulnerable. Alara's eyes gleamed. Good, now we maintain pressure but do not overcommit. Our goal is not destruction, it is demonstration. We show the Empire that humans can survive, adapt, and outthink even overwhelming power. The Terran fleet continued to exploit the gaps and weaknesses of the Imperial forces. Decoys and holographic projections confused enemy targeting, while small bursts of energy and precise maneuvers disrupted shields and sensors. The humans moved in harmony, a single coordinated organism, unpredictable yet controlled. Ensign Solus executed a daring move, slipping past a group of cruisers to release a burst of energy that temporarily disabled their navigation systems. That should keep them busy for a while, she reported. Captain Voss allowed herself a quiet smile. Excellent. Every move we make teaches them a lesson. Every misstep they take is a demonstration of human ingenuity. The Imperial officers were visibly frustrated. How can such small ships cause so much disruption? One asked. This is unexpected. Vaylor's expression hardened. Humans, he said quietly. They are clever. Too clever. But cleverness alone will not overcome power. Prepare the next stage of engagement. They will not survive indefinitely. But even as the Empire prepared its next move, the Terrans had already adjusted. They had learned, adapted, and anticipated the challenges. Every maneuver, every pulse of energy, every calculated risk was a demonstration of human capability, the ability to survive and thrive even when outnumbered and outgunned. Captain Voss looked at her crew, pride evident in her eyes. This is the moment where humans prove their value, not through power, not through size, but through creativity, courage, and cooperation. That is what makes us formidable. The Empire's fleet advanced again, expecting to crush the human resistance. But the Terrans, small yet formidable, used every available tactic to avoid destruction. Their ships slipped through gaps in the enemy formation, used decoys to misdirect attacks, and exploited environmental hazards to their advantage. Every move was calculated, precise, and deliberate. Lieutenant Joran monitored the results. Captain, their fleet is disorganized. They are reacting to us, not leading. Our strategy is working perfectly. Alara nodded. Good, remember the Empire expects fear. We give them strategy instead. That is how humans survive, through intelligence, adaptability, and unity. The first major maneuver of humanity's counterplay concluded successfully. The Imperial fleet had been disrupted, forced into a defensive posture and made to confront the unpredictability of a species they had underestimated. The humans had not destroyed the Empire. They had demonstrated that intelligence and coordination could challenge even overwhelming power. Captain Voss looked at the holographic display, observing the positions of her fleet. We have survived the first test, she said softly. The Empire has power, but we have strategy, ingenuity, and courage. That is our strength. That is what makes humans exceptional. In the vast darkness of space, the Terran fleet moved with confidence, small yet formidable, clever and coordinated. They had executed their counterplay perfectly, demonstrating that even the mightiest force could be challenged by intelligence, creativity, and unity. And far across the battlefield, aboard the Celestial Spear, Admiral Vaylor watched the outcome with a mixture of frustration and awe. They are remarkable, he admitted quietly. Perhaps we have underestimated the human spirit. But the real challenge is yet to come. The Terrans had survived the first major counterstrike, and the Empire had learned a lesson it had never anticipated. Size, firepower, and technology could be countered by intelligence, adaptability, and the unyielding spirit of humanity. As the stars stretched endlessly around them, both fleets prepared for the next stage of the conflict. The Terrans had demonstrated their skill, ingenuity, and resilience. The Empire had witnessed firsthand that humans were clever, persistent, and capable of outthinking even the most powerful adversary. And in the quiet moments between maneuvers, every human aboard every ship carried a thought that echoed across the void. No matter the size or power of the enemy, humanity had the ability to survive and to prevail. The void of space was vast, silent, and unyielding, yet it pulsed with tension as the Terran fleet and the Galactic Empire faced each other once again. After surviving skirmishes, dodging overwhelming attacks, and turning the enemy's confidence into a trap, humanity now stood ready for the final phase of confrontation. Captain Alara Voss walked steadily across the bridge of the Resolute, her calm demeanor inspiring every crew member. The fleet had endured trials that would have shattered most species. Yet humans had adapted, learned, and prevailed through intelligence, creativity, and unwavering courage. "Lieutenant Joran," she said, her voice measured but firm, "they believe they can strike again and finally overwhelm us. But we've anticipated this. Every move they make has already been calculated for. We will show them that humans are not just survivors. We are strategists, innovators, and fearless." Joran nodded. "All ships report ready, Captain. Shields optimized, engines at peak performance, communication lines open. We are prepared for anything." Across the battlefield, the Empire bristled with confidence. Admiral Vaylor's fleet had been tested, humiliated, and disrupted. Yet the Empire's officers were certain that sheer numbers and overwhelming firepower could still secure victory. Their warships glimmered with energy fields, weapons primed for the final assault. "Prepare for the decisive strike," Vaylor commanded. "This is their end. Their cleverness can only last so long." But humans did not plan to fight conventionally. Captain Voss had devised a strategy that relied not on destruction, but on deception, adaptation, and exploiting the Empire's arrogance. The fleet split into smaller units, each carrying out a carefully rehearsed maneuver designed to create confusion, maximize inefficiency in the Imperial fleet, and open gaps that only human ingenuity could exploit. Ensign Kira Solis piloted her vessel with precise agility, weaving through clusters of larger ships while deploying decoy signals. "Captain," she reported, "their sensors are overwhelmed. They cannot track us accurately, and their formation is breaking." Ilara's eyes sparkled with quiet satisfaction. "Good. Now maintain pressure but avoid unnecessary risk. We survive, we adapt, we demonstrate our capabilities. That is our victory." The Imperial fleet, confident in its superiority, had not expected such cleverness. Each Imperial officer struggled to make sense of the human tactics, their weapons firing at shadows, decoys, and false signals. The Empire had power, but the humans had unpredictability, adaptability, and unity. On the bridge of the Celestial Spear, Vaylor's fingers tapped rhythmically on the console. "They are remarkable," he admitted quietly, almost to himself. "They are using our strength against us, but strength alone will still prevail. Prepare the final energy volleys. Let us see if intelligence can truly outmatch power." The Terrans anticipated the strike. Captain Voss commanded the fleet to execute a series of rapid maneuvers, exploiting gaps between the massive warships, using gravitational anomalies and debris fields to force the Empire's largest vessels to slow down or miscalculate trajectories. Every adjustment created further confusion in the Imperial ranks. Lieutenant Joran monitored the outcomes. "Captain, their formation is collapsing. They are losing coordination. Our strategy is effective. They cannot predict our next moves." "Exactly," Ilara said. "Humans survive because we think, adapt, and act together. That is more powerful than firepower. Remember that." Ensign Solis guided her ship between two massive cruisers, releasing a precise pulse that temporarily disabled their energy cannons. "They won't know what hit them," she said, exhilarated. The Empire's fleet continued its assault, but the humans had turned it into an exercise of futility. Each massive volley expended by the Imperial ships was countered by human strategy. Decoys, environmental advantages, precise bursts of energy, and coordinated maneuvers that exploited every predictable assumption the Empire made. Captain Voss observed the battlefield with a calm smile. "Notice when she said to her officers, they rely on fear and power. We give them strategy. Intelligence and courage cannot be destroyed. They adapt, they survive, they thrive." For the first time, Imperial officers experienced doubt. Their most advanced technology had been repeatedly circumvented by a fleet they had considered insignificant. Ships that should have been destroyed had survived. Every predictable move they made was countered. Every attempt at intimidation was nullified by human ingenuity. Vaylor's eyes narrowed. "They are clever beyond expectation, but cleverness alone cannot sustain them against the Empire." Yet the humans' cleverness was precisely what sustained them. The Terran fleet coordinated flawlessly, each vessel complementing the other's movements. They used decoys to mislead, gravitational anomalies to hinder enemy navigation, and subtle energy pulses to disable targeting systems without causing destruction. Every engagement became a lesson in efficiency, strategy, and unity. "Captain," Joran reported, "they are misaligning. The Empire cannot anticipate our maneuvers anymore." "We can exploit this to our advantage," Ilara nodded. "All ships converge on weak points without engaging in direct destruction. Confuse, disrupt, and demonstrate capability. This is the final act. Humanity will show the Empire what it means to underestimate us." The Terrans executed their plan with precision. Smaller ships led larger Imperial vessels into areas where energy fields and debris disrupted their systems. Holographic decoys projected false ships, causing the Empire to expend energy on empty targets. The humans moved as a single, coordinated entity, unpredictable yet deliberate. The Empire's officers panicked as their fleet's formation crumbled. Massive warships collided, misfired, or became trapped in gravitational anomalies. Every attempt at coordination was thwarted by the ingenuity and adaptability of a smaller, seemingly fragile fleet. Vaylor gritted his teeth. "Impossible. How can such a small force cause such disruption?" Captain Voss allowed herself a quiet smile. "We are not small in spirit," she said. "Humans survive because we think, we adapt, and we act together. That is power the Empire cannot measure." The decisive moment came when the Terran fleet executed a coordinated maneuver, drawing the Imperial fleet into a narrow corridor of space littered with asteroids and energy anomalies. The large ship struggled to navigate the channel, while the Terran slipped through with precision. A pulse of energy from multiple human vessels disrupted the sensors and navigation systems of several Imperial ships, forcing them into defensive postures and preventing effective coordination. "Lieutenant Joran," Ilara said, "observe carefully. This is the culmination of human ingenuity." Joran nodded, his eyes glued to the display. "Captain, it's working. They are disorganized. They cannot predict our next moves. Their power is ineffective." Across the battlefield, Imperial officers realized for the first time that the humans were not just surviving, they were mastering the engagement. Every predictable assumption they had made was turned against them. The Empire's might was powerful, but the humans' adaptability, coordination, and creativity proved unstoppable. Admiral Vaylor's expression darkened. They survived everything. Perhaps we have underestimated the human spirit." Captain Voss watched the Imperial fleet falter and allowed herself a small, ironic smile. Humanity had not needed to destroy the Empire. They had survived, adapted, and demonstrated that intelligence, courage, and unity could rival overwhelming power. Ensign Solis guided her ship past the remnants of the Imperial formation. "Captain," she said, "they're retreating." "They are withdrawing to reassess." Ilara's smile widened. "Exactly as predicted. Humanity does not fight by fear or intimidation. We fight by thinking, adapting, and surviving. The Empire has learned a lesson it will not forget." The Terran fleet regrouped, small but triumphant. No ship had been lost, and every crew member understood the significance of their survival. The humans had faced a civilization far greater than themselves, and through intelligence, ingenuity, and unity, they had not only survived, they had demonstrated the true strength of humanity. Admiral Vaylor watched the retreating Imperial fleet with a mixture of frustration and awe. "They are remarkable," he admitted quietly. "Perhaps we have underestimated them. But the real challenge, the true test, has only begun. Humans are not just survivors. They are clever, resilient, and unpredictable. We will need to reconsider everything." Captain Voss allowed herself a quiet moment of satisfaction. Humanity had endured the impossible, faced the mightiest power in the galaxy, and emerged intact. They had proven that size, firepower, and numbers could be challenged by intelligence, adaptability, and courage. In the quiet moments after the battle, the Terran fleet moved together, small but formidable, clever, and coordinated. They had demonstrated to the galaxy that humans were not to be underestimated, that even in the face of overwhelming odds, ingenuity, courage, and unity could triumph. Captain Voss addressed her crew. "We have shown the Empire the true strength of humanity. They may return and we may face greater challenges, but one truth remains. Humans survive, adapt, and persevere. Our intelligence, our courage, and our unity are greater than any weapon or fleet. That is what makes us strong. That is what makes us human." And as the stars stretched endlessly around them, the Terran fleet moved forward with quiet confidence, small yet mighty, clever yet fearless. They had faced the Empire and smiled in irony,